Commander Koss stood at attention in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Alliance, his posture rigid as the Council's holographic figures loomed above. The chamber, usually filled with the gentle hum of diplomatic discourse, now pulsed with an energy that made his exoskeleton plates bristle. "Expedition Regalian Marauders," High Commissioner Zorvix's voice echoed through the hall. "You have been selected for a mission of utmost scientific importance." The mission briefing flickered to life on the massive display. Earth, designation, Deathworld 3CX, appeared in high-definition glory, its blue and green surface swirling with white atmospheric patterns that concealed its deadly nature. "Your objective is simple," continued Zorvix, her tentacles gesturing with ceremonial precision. "Establish an outpost in what our probes have identified as the safest zone of this high-gravity, oxidizing nightmare. Gather specimens, record observations, and prepare the groundwork for potential resource extraction." Koss exchanged glances with Zilnax, the science officer whose extra pair of eyes blinked in rhythmic excitement. They had trained for this. 1,000 of the Regalian's finest warriors and scientists, equipped with the most advanced survival gear the Alliance could manufacture. "The indigenous species," Zorvix continued, her voice dropping to a tone that suggested both fascination and disgust, "have somehow managed to become the dominant life form despite their biological inferiority. They lack exoskeletons, possess only 2 eyes, and maintain internal body temperatures through inefficient metabolic processes." A ripple of nervous chittering spread through the assembled troops. "They call themselves humans," Zorvix added. "Our linguistic analysis suggests they communicate primarily through crude sound waves, rather than proper telepathic or chemical signaling." War General Kraxus, standing at Koss's side, leaned in. "I heard they drink poison for pleasure," he whispered. Born on the methane plains of Titan, Kraxus had survived 3 galactic campaigns, yet even he seemed disturbed by Earth's reputation. "Remember," Zorvix's final warning resonated through the hall. "While Earth has been designated a minimal threat scientifically, do not underestimate its hazards. The atmospheric oxygen concentration alone could corrode unprotected equipment. Proceed with all standard Deathworld protocols." Koss saluted, his arm plates clicking together in the traditional Regalian manner. "The Marauders will prevail. High Commissioner, for knowledge, for conquest, for the Alliance." The assembled 1,000 warriors echoed his salute, their synchronized movement creating a wave of clicking exoskeletons that bounced off the chamber walls. Little did they know that this would be the last time 999 of them would stand in an Alliance facility. The descent to Earth was, by Alliance standards, perfectly routine. 15 dropships entered the atmosphere in tight formation, their heat shields dispersing the friction energy in beautiful crimson patterns against the night sky. On board, the Regalian warriors secured their equipment, ran final diagnostics on their protective suits, and reviewed mission parameters. Koss sat in the command pod of the lead ship, monitoring the approach vectors. "Target zone confirmed. Oregon, North American continent. Relative oxygen levels are at the lower end of the planetary average, and human population density is minimal. Perfect conditions for a first landing," Zilnax confirmed, her 4 hands simultaneously adjusting various instruments. "Though I must note that my research indicates this region contains large mammals that could pose physical threats." The mention of Earth's wildlife caused several warriors to activate their personal shields, an unnecessary precaution during landing. But Koss didn't reprimand them. Fear was a rational response to a death world. "Deploying atmospheric sensors," announced the pilot, a seasoned veteran named Tavik. "Readings confirm expected toxicity. Oxygen levels at 21%. Corrosive but within our suit's tolerances. Nitrogen dominant. Trace methane. Various pollutants." The ships broke through the cloud layer, revealing a vast expanse of dark green below. The coniferous forests of the Pacific Northwest, Moonlight glinted off scattered bodies of water, and in the distance, mountains rose like jagged teeth against the horizon. "Beautiful, in a terrifying way," Zilnax murmured, forgetting protocol for a moment. "Beauty is irrelevant," Commander Tavik snapped. "Death often wears an attractive mask." The ship slowed their descent, gravitational compensators humming as they adjusted to Earth's pull, 1.3 times stronger than the Regalian homeworld. They hovered above a clearing large enough to accommodate the temporary base. Scanners, sweeping for any immediate threats. "Landing zone secure," reported the tactical officer. "No large life forms detected within a 1-kilometer radius." "Excellent," Kaz nodded. "Commence." The impact came without warning. Something massive collided with the cockpit viewport of Tavik's ship, a blur of brown fur and antlers that appeared seemingly from nowhere. The reinforced transparent alloy, designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts, cracked in a spiderweb pattern as the creature's body was flung aside. "By the void!" Tavik shrieked, his composure shattering instantly. "We're under attack. Indigenous life form has breached our defenses." "Calm yourself, Commander," Koss ordered, watching as the damaged ship wobbled in the air. "It's just a local animal. Your viewport integrity is at 92%. But Tavik was beyond rational thought. "It was waiting for us. It knew exactly where to strike. These creatures must have some kind of telepathic coordination we didn't detect." The comms filled with confused chatter as the other ships witnessed Tavik's breakdown. The respected commander, veteran of 3 campaigns on hostile worlds, was hyperventilating inside his helmet. His pupils dilated to maximum aperture. "Tavik, this is a direct order. Complete your landing sequence," Koss commanded. But it was too late. The damaged ship was already ascending, its engines flaring bright against the night sky. "I'm returning to orbit," Tavik announced, his voice cracking. "This place. It's not what we were told. The creatures can fly. They can target our weaknesses." Before Koss could respond, a second impact rocked another ship. This time, nothing more than a large avian creature caught in the propulsion field. But it was enough. Panic spread through the fleet like a contagion. 3 more ships broke formation, their commanders citing tactical reassessment as they ascended to join Tavik. In less than 5 minutes, the Regalian landing force had been reduced by a third. "This is unprecedented," Zilnax whispered to Koss as they finally touched down in the clearing. 4 commanders suffering simultaneous psychological breaks? Koss watched the retreating ships with a mixture of disgust and concern. "This planet affects our people in ways we didn't anticipate. Whatever happens, we cannot allow fear to compromise our mission." He activated the ship-wide comms. "Attention all Regalian forces. Establish perimeter defenses and begin base construction. This is still a scientific expedition, and we will conduct ourselves accordingly. The creatures that damaged Commander Tavik's ship have been identified as non-sentient herbivores called deer. They pose no tactical threat." As the remaining ships disgorged their personnel and equipment, Koss stepped onto Earth's surface for the first time. His suit immediately registered the environmental data. Temperature 12 degree ion, humidity 78%, atmospheric pressure 101.3 kPa. Deadly, by Regalian standards, but manageable within their technology. The first night on Earth passed without incident, if one discounted the constant alerts from overactive sensors responding to the movement of small forest creatures. By dawn, the base's fundamental structures had been assembled: habitat domes, research facilities, and defensive perimeters that would keep the local wildlife at bay. Koss stood at the command center, reviewing the preliminary reports when Zilnax approached, her normally precise movements betraying a hint of agitation. "Commander, we have a situation," she said, her secondary eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of extreme concern among her species. "Our long-range scanners have detected a human settlement approximately 12 kilometers from our position." "That can't be right," Koss frowned. "The mission briefing specified this area was uninhabited." The settlement appears to be what humans call a trailer park, Zilnax explained, displaying the scans on her tablet. Preliminary analysis suggests approximately 40 to 50 humans residing in temporary dwellings. They generate minimal technology signatures, which is why our orbital surveys missed them. Koss considered this development. The mission parameters were clear: avoid contact with humans until the base was fully operational and proper observation protocols could be established. We'll need to accelerate our schedule, he decided. Double the research teams in the field. I want comprehensive data on the local ecosystem before these humans become aware of our presence. What happened next would later be recorded in Alliance historical archives as the Cascade of Improbabilities, a series of events so unlikely that xenopsychologists would debate for decades whether Earth itself possessed some form of consciousness that actively resisted invasion. It began with Research Team Epsilon, tasked with cataloging the local fungal species. Led by senior mycologist Vex, they ventured into the forest equipped with collection drones and analysis equipment. 3 hours into their expedition, Vex's excited voice crackled over the comms. "Commander, we've discovered a fungal specimen of remarkable properties. Its chemical structure suggests potential medicinal applications far beyond our current pharmacopoeia." Kaz, preoccupied with base security, acknowledged the report without much interest. "Catalog it according to protocol and return to base." Mycologist. "But Commander, this is unprecedented. The specimen exhibits mild bioluminescence and—" The transmission cut off abruptly. When Vex and his team failed to report in after 2 hours, Koss dispatched a security detail to their last known coordinates. They found the research team sitting in a circle around a cluster of bright red mushrooms with white spots, their helmets removed, laughing uncontrollably. "The colors," Vex giggled when the security detail approached. "Have you ever really looked at your hands? I mean, really looked?" It took 3 days to detoxify the research team, during which time their behavior ranged from euphoric philosophical rambling to paranoid assertions that the trees were watching them. The mushrooms, later identified as a species humans called Amanita muscaria, had released spores that penetrated the researchers' filtration systems through a microscopic manufacturing defect. This was only the beginning. 2 days later, Engineering Team Gamma, while testing soil composition near a small cave system, encountered what they described as a pocket of anomalous gas. When they returned to base, they couldn't stop laughing for 18 hours straight. Analysis revealed they had discovered a natural deposit of nitrous oxide, laughing gas in human terminology, which had infiltrated their breathing apparatus. Meanwhile, the reconnaissance drones sent to observe the human trailer park began malfunctioning in ways that defied explanation. One drone recorded 6 hours of footage, focused exclusively on a small furry creature that humans kept as companions: dogs, according to the database. Another repeatedly crashed into reflective surfaces. 3 simply disappeared, only to be discovered days later, disassembled in what appeared to be a child's play area. Koss called an emergency meeting of the remaining command staff. "This planet is actively hostile in ways our briefing never covered," he stated, reviewing the growing list of incidents. 7 research teams compromised by various environmental factors. 12 warriors reporting hallucinations after contact with local plant life. And now this. He displayed footage of a reconnaissance drone being carried away by what appeared to be a small, masked mammal. "The humans call that a raccoon," Zilnax offered. "A non-sentient scavenger with remarkable manual dexterity." "I don't care what they call it," Koss snapped. "I care that our technology, the most advanced in the known galaxy, is being defeated by fur-covered primitives." Zilnax's secondary eyes blinked thoughtfully. "Commander, I believe we need to reconsider our approach. Rather than trying to avoid the human settlement, perhaps we should establish contact. Their knowledge of this environment could prove invaluable." War General Craxus, who had remained stoically silent through most of the mission's setbacks, finally spoke. "The scientist speaks sense, Commander. Know your enemy's territory by consulting your enemy." "They're not the enemy," Zilnax corrected. "They're potential research subjects." "Semantics," Craxus growled. After much debate, Cuss made his decision. They would send a small delegation to the human settlement under a flag of peace. Zilnax would lead, accompanied by Craxus for security, and 3 of their most disciplined warriors. The delegation departed at dawn, equipped with translation devices and non-lethal defensive options. Koss watched them leave with a sense of foreboding that his species' instincts had evolved specifically to provide. The human settlement looked even more bizarre up close than it had in the drone footage. Wheeled metal dwellings arranged in haphazard patterns. Colorful decorations that served no apparent purpose. Small patches of cultivated plants amid strewn objects that might be tools or waste. It was difficult to determine which. As they approached the largest structure, a building with a flickering sign reading Linda's office and laundromat, a human female emerged. She was shorter than Alliance Intel had suggested for the species, with artificially colored hair and markings on her skin that Zilnax recognized as tattoos from the cultural briefing. "Well, ain't this something?" the human said, placing her hands on her hips. She showed no sign of fear at the sight of 6 armored aliens approaching her business. "I told Earl them lights in the forest weren't just kids with drones, but nobody listens to Linda. Y'all want coffee?" The translation devices took a moment to process her dialect, then rendered her final question. Zilnax stepped forward. "Greetings. Human-designated Linda. We are a scientific expedition from the Galactic Alliance. We come in peace to study your world." Linda looked them up and down, then shrugged. "Figured as much. You ain't the first visitors we've had, though you're certainly the most polite. Last bunch just went straight to the probing." She gestured toward the office. "Come on in before someone calls the feds. I just made a fresh pot." Inside the office, which doubled as Linda's living quarters, the delegation experienced their first close contact with human domestic life. The space was cluttered with objects of no discernible purpose. Framed images showed Linda with various other humans. A device in the corner emitted changing lights and sounds, what Zilnax identified as a television. "So," Linda said, pouring brown liquid into containers and offering them to her visitors. "What brings the Spacebug people to Whispering Pines Trailer Park? We ain't exactly on the Cosmic Highway." Zilnax explained their mission, while the others examined the coffee with their scanners. Craxus, ever the soldier, refused to let the liquid near his breathing apparatus. But Zilnax, in the name of science, opened a small port in her helmet and cautiously tasted it. The effect was immediate. Her secondary eyes dilated fully, and her exoskeleton vibrated subtly. "This chemical compound," she managed to say. "It's a stimulant?" "Sure is, honey," Linda nodded. "Only thing that gets me through the morning shift. That and my vape pen." She pulled out another device and inhaled from it, releasing a cloud of scented vapor that sent the delegation's toxin alarms into overdrive. Over the next hour, an unlikely dialogue unfolded. Linda, it turned out, managed the trailer park and knew every resident. She offered insights into local hazards. Don't go near the old Johnson property, toxic waste dump from the 80s. Wildlife. Them raccoons will steal anything not nailed down. And social dynamics. Friday's karaoke night at the Rusty Nail. Best avoid it unless you're fond of tone-deaf renditions of Sweet Home Alabama. As they were preparing to leave, the door burst open, and 3 more humans entered. A female with a device pointed at them, a male with decorative metal embedded in his face, and another male wearing what appeared to be military garments from a previous era. "Holy shit! Linda! You weren't kidding!" the younger female exclaimed, her device emitting a flashing light. "This is going straight on TikTok." "Jeanette, put that phone away," Linda scolded. These folks are scientists, not your social media content. But it was too late. Before anyone could react, Jeanette had captured images of the delegation and was rapidly manipulating her device. "What is TikTok?" Zilnax asked, suddenly concerned. "Nothing to worry about," Linda assured her. "Just a place where folks share videos. No one will believe they're real aliens anyway." Craxus was not convinced. "This constitutes a security breach. We must confiscate the recording device." The situation might have escalated, if not for the older male's intervention. "At ease, soldier," he said to Craxus, recognizing a fellow warrior despite the species difference. "Name's Vince, former Marine, fought in Desert Storm. If you're friendly, you've got nothing to worry about from us." Craxus, surprised by the human's military bearing, found himself responding to the authority in Vince's voice. "We are not hostile," he conceded. "Good," Vince nodded. "Because hostile visitors tend not to last long around here. Earth's got a way of dealing with unwelcome guests." When the delegation returned to base, they found Koss in the midst of another crisis. While they were gone, a team investigating a nearby water source had encountered what they described as a massive bipedal furry entity. The sighting had triggered another wave of panic among the more impressionable warriors. "They're calling it Bigfoot," Koss explained, his frustration evident. "A mythological creature from human folklore. It can't possibly exist. Yet 3 reliable warriors claim to have seen it. This planet affects perception in unpredictable ways," Zilnax offered, still slightly stimulated from the coffee. "But our contact with the humans was successful. They've agreed to share their knowledge in exchange for basic medical technology." "You negotiated without authorization?" Koss's antennae flattened against his head in anger. "It was necessary," Craxus interjected. "The human female, Linda, possesses valuable tactical information about this territory, and she has invited us to something called a barbecue tomorrow." Koss was about to reprimand them both when an alert sounded from the communications array. "Commander," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Human Global Information Network." On the main screen appeared an image that froze every regalian in the command center. It was Zilnax, her 4 arms gesticulating as she explained Alliance technology to Linda. The caption read, "Alien scientists think our trailer park is Earth's safest zone. First contact. They don't know about Florida yet." Beneath it, human responses were accumulating by the thousands. "Lmao, those costumes are fire. CGI getting too good these days. If aliens really landed, they wouldn't pick Oregon, lol. Wait till they meet my ex-wife. They'll fly right back to space." "What is happening?" Koss asked, his translator struggling with the human idioms. "I believe," Zilnax said slowly, "that we have just become what humans call a meme." The next week unfolded in ways that no Alliance training could have prepared them for. The human internet, a chaotic network of information and misinformation, erupted with discussions about the Oregon aliens. Most dismissed the video as an elaborate hoax, but some believed, and those believers began arriving at Whispering Pines Trailer Park. Koss, against his better judgment, established regular communication with Linda, who proved surprisingly effective at keeping unwanted attention away from the actual base location. She told curious visitors that the movie shoot had wrapped up and directed thrill seekers to entirely wrong locations. Meanwhile, the Regalian research teams continued their work, now with human guides who knew which plants were toxic, which animals were dangerous, and, perhaps most importantly, which local authorities to avoid. Jeanette, the young female with the TikTok device, became particularly valuable. She introduced several researchers to human digital culture, showing them memes, viral videos, and online gaming, concepts that fascinated Zilnax but horrified High Commander Zorvix when included in the mission reports. "These artifacts suggest a species-wide cognitive infection," Zorvix replied from Alliance headquarters. The humans transmit simplified ideas through repetitive imagery, often with no apparent purpose beyond momentary neurotransmitter stimulation. It is primitive, but concerning. What Zorvix failed to understand, what none of the Alliance analysts could comprehend, was how these seemingly trivial cultural expressions were changing the Regalian expedition. Warriors who had initially recoiled at human behavior were now engaging in what Jeanette called challenges. Scientists who had come to classify species were instead spending hours watching humans play digital games called Fortnite and Among Us. Koss found Kraxus one evening, his helmet removed, a serious protocol violation, sharing what humans called instant ramen with Vince outside the base perimeter. The two warriors, human and alien, were trading war stories, finding common ground in the universal experience of combat. "You allowed a human inside our security zone?" Koss demanded. Kraxus looked up, uncharacteristically relaxed. "Vince is a warrior of honor. He has shown me his service ribbons. Did you know humans decorate themselves to display battle achievements, just as we engrave our exoskeletons?" "That's not the point," Koss began, but Kraxus continued. "They fought a war over resources called oil, just as we battled the Proxima Coalition over helium deposits. Their weapons are crude but effective, and their battle tactics." Kraxus's mandibles clicked in what might have been admiration. "They are unpredictable in ways that even our strategic AIs cannot anticipate." Vince raised his cup of ramen. "To warriors across the stars, man, different blood, same heart." Koss walked away, deeply troubled. The mission was veering wildly off protocol, yet he couldn't deny they were gathering unprecedented insights into human culture. Insights that went far beyond the sterile analyses provided by Alliance anthropologists. That night, as he reviewed the day's reports, Koss received an urgent message from orbit. The 4 ships that had retreated during the landing were returning, with reinforcements. High Commander Zorvix herself was arriving to assess the situation personally. "This is a most unexpected development," Zilnax commented when Koss shared the news. "The High Commander rarely leaves Alliance space." "She believes we've been compromised," Koss said grimly. "And perhaps she's right. Look at us. We came to study a death world, and now our warriors are consuming expired noodle products with the natives." Zilnax's secondary eyes blinked in her species equivalent of a smile. "Is that not the purest form of scientific observation? Experiential learning?" Before Koss could answer, another alert sounded, this one from the long-range scanners. Multiple ships were entering the solar system, but they weren't Alliance vessels. The energy signatures were unmistakable. "Void regime," Kraxus growled, entering the command center with Vince still at his side. "Harvesters." The Void regime, religious extremists who believed in harvesting resource-rich planets down to their cores, had been the Alliance's primary adversary for generations. Their arrival could mean only one thing. They had detected the Alliance presence on Earth and decided to claim the planet for themselves. "How many ships?" Koss demanded. 37, the sensor operator reported. "Harvester configuration. They'll be in orbit within 6 hours." Vince, who shouldn't have been privy to this information but somehow found himself in the middle of an alien crisis, asked the obvious question. "What exactly does harvester configuration mean for Earth?" Kraxus answered, his voice grim. "They will land massive extraction engines. Begin by processing all surface water into fuel, then move on to organic matter. Finally, they will tap the planet's core for minerals. The process takes approximately 1 local month. Nothing survives." The command center fell silent. Then Vince spoke again, his voice calm despite the apocalyptic news. "You folks got weapons on those ships of yours?" "Of course," Kraxus replied. "But we are a research expedition, not a military force. We have 6 combat-capable vessels against 37 harvesters." "Then we'll need more than that," Vince said. He pulled out a communication device, a crude cell phone by human standards. "Linda, it's Vince. Remember that contingency plan we talked about after the Miller incident? Yeah, it's happening. Call everyone on the list. Tell them to bring everything. And I mean everything." When he finished, he looked at the assembled aliens. "You came to study Earth as scientists. Now you're going to see how Earthlings fight when our home is threatened." The next 12 hours would be remembered in Alliance records as the Earth Defense Anomaly, and in human internet culture as that time Oregon saved the world with Walmart supplies and crazy people. As the Void regime ships entered Earth orbit, Linda's trailer park transformed into an impromptu war room. Humans arrived in a steady stream, not just from the local area, but from neighboring states. They brought weapons ranging from hunting rifles to military-grade firearms. Vince apparently had connections from his service days. But they also brought tools, vehicles, electronic devices, and household chemicals in quantities that suggested either preparedness or hoarding tendencies. "This is Malik." Linda introduced a human male with remarkable physical capabilities. "He does something called parkour and used to work demolition, good with explosives. And this is Takakota," she continued, gesturing to a female with elaborate facial markings, similar to Linda's tattoos. "Best drone pilot in the Pacific Northwest, 3-time regional champion." Person after person arrived, each with some skill or resource that seemed random, but would prove critical. A chemistry teacher with knowledge of improvised explosives. A group of gamers who could operate remote vehicles with uncanny precision. A network of preppers who had been anticipating global catastrophe for decades and had bunkers full of supplies. Most surprising was the arrival of a transport vehicle containing 5 humans who had driven all the way from Florida after seeing Jeanette's TikTok video. Their leader, a sunburned male called Cody, who wore no upper body covering despite the cool Oregon weather, announced, "Heard y'all got an alien problem. Florida man reporting for duty." The command structure that emerged was unlike anything in Alliance military doctrine. Linda, despite having no combat experience, became the de facto coordinator simply because everyone in the region knew and respected her. Vince handled tactical planning. Jeanette established a communication network using social media platforms that somehow evaded the Void regime's signal jammers. Kaz, watching this chaotic organization form, found himself both baffled and impressed. There was no central authority, no chain of command in the traditional sense, yet everyone seemed to know their role. When disagreements arose, they were settled quickly, sometimes with loud arguments, sometimes with demonstrations of skill, once with a drinking contest that left Craxus questioning human physiology's ability to process toxins. "This shouldn't work," he confided to Zilnax as they observed a group of humans modifying civilian ATVs with makeshift armor and weapon mounts. "There's no discipline, no uniform approach." "Perhaps that's their strength," Zilnax suggested. "The Void regime expects organized resistance. Their tactical algorithms are designed to counter conventional warfare. This is something else entirely." When the first Harvester ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, the defenders were ready, not with a coordinated defense grid, but with what Vince called tactical insanity. Takakota's drone squadron, 50 consumer devices modified with small explosive charges, swarmed the lead ship, exploiting a weakness in its point defense systems. The Void regime's targeting computers, programmed to prioritize threats by size and energy signature, ignored the tiny drones until they had attached themselves to sensor arrays and engine ports. Meanwhile, the Florida contingent demonstrated why their state had such a fearsome reputation in human culture. Using nothing but modified golf carts, homemade explosives, and what they called Florida ingenuity, they managed to board a grounded Harvester ship. The Void Warriors, encased in advanced armor and wielding plasma weapons, were utterly unprepared for opponents who attacked by launching themselves from improvised ramps while wielding baseball bats wrapped in barbed wire. Across the battlefield, similar scenes unfolded. Harvesters that could withstand orbital bombardment were disabled by chemical cocktails mixed in plastic buckets. Void warriors, trained in 15 forms of combat, fled from local wildlife that humans had agitated and directed toward enemy positions. Communication systems that could resist military-grade jamming crashed when flooded with what Jeanette called spicy memes and cursed images. The Alliance warriors, initially hesitant to join what seemed like a suicidal resistance, found themselves drawn into the fight. Craxus led a mixed unit of Regalian soldiers and human veterans in a direct assault on a Harvester command node. Zilnax coordinated with the chemistry teacher to develop compounds that could penetrate void armor. And Kas, who had started this mission as the embodiment of Alliance protocol and discipline, found himself in the most unlikely position of all, riding in a human pickup truck driven by Linda. Using Alliance translation technology to broadcast psychological warfare in the form of human music that the Void regime's neural filters couldn't block. "You need to understand," he shouted, over the sound of what Linda had identified as death metal. "These frequencies shouldn't affect their cognitive functions this way." "Welcome to Earth, honey," Linda yelled back, swerving to avoid enemy fire. "Nothing works the way it's supposed to here." The battle raged for 18 hours. When it ended, 29 Harvester ships had retreated from Earth orbit. 8 lay disabled or destroyed on the planet's surface. The cost had been high. 17 humans had died in the fighting, and hundreds of Regalian warriors had fallen. But Earth had survived. In the aftermath, the remaining Regalian forces gathered with their human allies at Linda's trailer park. The space that had once been an alien curiosity was now a victory celebration unlike any in recorded galactic history. Humans and aliens shared food, drink, and stories. Medical teams from both species worked together to treat the wounded, discovering unexpected compatibilities in their approaches. High Commander Zorvix's ship arrived 26 hours after the battle ended. She descended to the surface with a full honor guard, expecting to find a decimated research expedition. Instead, she found Commander Koss sitting on a folding chair outside Linda's office, drinking coffee with his helmet removed, explaining Alliance governance to a group of attentive humans. "Commander," Zorvix's voice was cold with disapproval. "What is the meaning of this breach of protocol?" Koss stood and saluted, though not as crisply as he once would have. "High Commander, welcome to Earth. May I introduce Linda, acting representative of the local human settlement." Linda, unimpressed by Zorvix's ceremonial armor and entourage, offered a casual wave. "Nice setup you got there. Very flashy." Zorvix ignored the human. "Commander, you will gather all Alliance personnel and equipment for immediate evacuation. This planet has been classified as a Level 9 hazard. The Council has reviewed your reports, those that made sense, and determined that continued exposure to Earth represents an unacceptable risk to Alliance stability." "With respect, High Commander," Koss began, "the humans just helped us defeat a Void regime harvesting fleet. Without them, we would have been destroyed." "So your report claimed?" Zorvix's antennae twitched with skepticism. "A more likely explanation is that the Void regime detected our weakness and chose to withdraw rather than commit fully. These creatures," she gestured dismissively at the humans, "could not possibly have the military capacity to repel harvesters." From the back of the gathering crowd, Cody's voice rang out. "Lady, I killed 3 of your Void boys with nothing but a pool noodle and some gasoline. Want me to demonstrate on your guards?" The threat, impossible as it seemed, caused Zorvix's honor guard to activate their shields. This, in turn, prompted Vince and his veterans to raise their weapons. The tension might have erupted into violence if not for the arrival of War General Craxus, looking more disheveled than any Alliance officer had a right to be. "Stand down, all of you," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of countless battles. High Commander, I vouch for these humans with my life and honor. They fought alongside us against superior forces and prevailed through methods that defied all conventional logic. They are not a threat to the Alliance, unless we make them so. Zorvix studied Kraxus, noting the modifications to his armor, human symbols painted on his shoulder plates, a ragged piece of cloth tied around one arm like a trophy. You've been compromised, General. All of you have. No. High Commander. Zilnax joined them, her forearms carrying an improbable collection of human artifacts, a partially disassembled drone, a container of instant noodles, a device labeled iPhone, and a stuffed representation of a forest creature. We've been enlightened. Earth isn't just a death world. It's a nexus of cultural evolution, unlike anything in our records. These humans survive, not despite their chaotic nature, but because of it. For 3 days, the debate continued. Zorvix demanded immediate withdrawal, Kaz and Kraxus, and Zilnax argued for continued engagement. The remaining Regalian warriors, many of whom had formed bonds with their human counterparts, were divided in their loyalties. In the end, a compromise was reached. The Alliance would withdraw from Earth, but not before establishing proper diplomatic channels. One representative would remain to maintain communication, while the Council deliberated on Earth's official status. I volunteer, Kraxus announced before anyone else could speak. Denied, Zorvix said flatly. You're too valuable to the Alliance military to be sacrificed. Sacrificed, Linda scoffed. We're not going to eat him. Well, most of us won't. Can't speak for Florida Man over there. Cody grinned, revealing several missing teeth. No promises. After much negotiation, it was decided that Kraxus would indeed remain, not as a hostage or sacrifice, but as the first official Alliance ambassador to Earth. The rest of the expedition would return to Alliance space, taking with them the data, specimens, and experience they had gathered. On the final day, as the ships prepared for departure, Kaz found himself reluctant to leave. He had come to this death world expecting to find primitive dangers. Instead, he had discovered something far more precious and dangerous. A new perspective. You'll keep in touch, right? Linda asked as they said their goodbyes. I mean, we did save your buggy butts from those void fellows. The Alliance Council will determine the nature of our future interactions, Kaz replied. Then, seeing her expression, added, But yes, we'll keep in touch. Kraxus has been equipped with a quantum communicator linked directly to my office. Good, Linda nodded. Because Jeanette's TikTok followers are demanding updates. You're internet famous now. You know. Spacebugs is trending globally. Kaz's antennae twitched in what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. The High Commander believes your internet is the most dangerous weapon on this planet. More threatening than your nuclear arsenals or biological agents. Smart lady, Linda chuckled. First sensible thing I've heard her say. As the Alliance ships lifted off from Earth, Zorvix summoned Kaz to her command chamber. The High Commander had not set foot on the planet's surface again after her initial visit, preferring to issue orders from orbit. You understand, Commander, she said without preamble, that everything that occurred on Earth must be carefully controlled. The Council has classified all mission records as Omega-level secure. Because we failed? Kaz asked. Because you succeeded in ways that threaten our fundamental understanding of the galaxy. Zorvix corrected him. If word spreads that a primitive species on a death world repelled harvesters through, what did your report call it? Tactical insanity? It would undermine confidence in Alliance military doctrine. Kaz considered this. The humans saved us. High Commander, they deserve recognition. They will receive it, in time, Zorvix assured him, though her tone suggested otherwise. For now, Ambassador Craxus will maintain minimal contact while we assess the long-term implications of human culture on Alliance stability. 1 year later, General Craxus's final report arrived at Alliance headquarters via quantum transmission. It was brief, direct, and sent ripples of panic through the highest levels of government. After extensive observation, I must report that Earth cannot be classified merely as a death world. It is a Class X memetic hazard. Human culture, their memes, their social media, their chaotic approach to problem-solving, represents a form of cognitive contagion that restructures thought patterns in non-human species. I have observed this effect in myself, despite preventative measures. Earth should be quarantined immediately. No further contact, no monitoring. The risk of contamination is too great. For the safety of the Alliance, I will remain here to ensure no further transmission occurs. Consider me a casualty of this mission. War General Craxus' final communication. The Alliance Council acted swiftly. Earth was designated a prohibited zone. All records of the Regalian expedition were sealed. The 1,000 warriors who had landed on humanity's safest zone were sworn to secrecy, their memories partially suppressed through psychic technology. Only Kas, now promoted to Overseer of Deathworld Containment, retained full knowledge of what had occurred, and late at night, when his duties were complete, he would sometimes access a secret channel on his personal communicator, a channel that shouldn't have existed given Alliance jamming technology. "Hey there, bug boy." Linda's voice would crackle through, somehow penetrating the most sophisticated communication blocks in the galaxy. "Got something to show you." Jeanette figured out how to boost the signal using some parts Craxus left behind. "We're broadcasting now. The whole internet is. Sending our memes to the stars. And across Alliance space, on planets where discipline and order had reigned for millennia. Unusual behaviors began to emerge. Young warriors painting their exoskeletons with colorful patterns. Scientists questioning established hierarchies. Civilians sharing simplified image-text constructs that spread ideas faster than official channels could counter them. The quarantine had failed. Earth's most powerful weapon, its chaotic, vibrant, absurd culture, had found a way to transmit itself across the void. In his office, surrounded by dire reports of cultural contamination, Overseer Kas did something that would have been unthinkable before his time on Earth. He laughed. And somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of the Alliance, a board communications technician received a strange transmission from the prohibited zone. It made no sense by Alliance standards. Just an image of a human male performing an inexplicable action, with the text, "Florida man strikes again" beneath it. The technician should have reported it immediately. Instead, they forwarded it to a colleague, adding, "Look at this. No idea what it means, but can't stop looking at it." The infection had begun.